Hey,
Ken, how you doing?
bro, I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, man?
I'm wicked, man. Really, really good. Yeah, we've been waiting for you. Everyone's excited. Everyone's got the notepads, the laptop. Everyone's
Oh,
ready to
good.
go. I
Right,
was
hang
just
on. I'm just turning this up. Hang on, just a sec.
cool. No problem. No problem.
Sorry, I've got kids. I've got homeschooling, so I've been
Oh
trying
no,
to, you know, make things happen.
don't worry, man. I'm just saying to the guys, really, it's this is the last one of the series so far, but we're going to do
Yeah.
something more in the future. But I was also just saying, like this week, I know for you because you're homeschooling stuff, it's been hectic, so it almost never
Yes.
happened, I think. But thankfully, we're here today,
Yep.
and
Yep.
yeah, we're good to go. So basically, the idea for this talk today. So, firstly, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to Money Talk Part 3 with Ken from the Humble Penny. Ken is a money expert. He's a genius. He's somebody who is inspiring me daily to make my finances better. And he's
Yeah.
got great tips and hints for you to make your money life better. He
Mhm.
is the founder of thehumblepenny.com and also the YouTube channel, The Humble Penny, and also the Financial Joy Academy. And trust me when I tell you guys, the resources on there are absolutely sick. I'm going to talk about one of them a little bit later on. But firstly, I want to introduce Ken. So everyone say welcome to Ken. Put a wave in
Thank
the
you.
chat.
Thank
Chat
you.
up. Do you want to say anything before we start, Ken?
I just want to say thank you guys for showing up. Really appreciate you showing up. Today's going to be a casual chat. It's going to be really practical. I just want to share with you guys some of the stuff that's been working for us in our home with the hope that you can start to apply these ideas to your own family situations and hopefully then start to move forward in your financial lives as well.
Wicked. Amazing. Amazing. So let's get down to business.
Mm-hmm.
So the first we talked about, I think in Money Talk Part 2, you mentioned the idea of Money Day, and it like everyone was like,
Yes.
"Oh, Money Day," and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it hit home for me too. And the idea of Money Day being the day where you sit down and plan. But I want you to really dive deep into that and take as much time as you need because this is what we're here for today, and
Yeah.
just to break it down in as much detail as possible. And for those people who are joining us for the first time, break down the concept. What is Money Day,
Yeah.
and what role does it play in your life and getting your finances in order?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, okay, so before I even dive into that, it's very important that some of you guys might have met me for the first time today. So I'm just going to give you a tiny bit of background from a professional perspective, just so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from. So the money day, first of all, is the day that we talk about our finances. So it's the day we've got diarized to talk about the specifics of what's happened with our money in the last 1 month. So for example, today's the 1st of May. Today is our money day. So we've met today at 6:30 a.m. with my wife. I sat on that chair over there. She sat on the one over there. We made ourselves a cup of tea and the money day began. And it took us about 2.5 hours to go through what I'm going to talk to you about just now. But a bit of background. So my background is that I, for years, trained as a chartered accountant, qualified here in the UK, and then began working in financial services. I've worked with lots of entrepreneurial companies in the financial services industry. And I've kind of just worked my way up, going from just being a qualified accountant to becoming a finance manager, financial controller, head of finance, finance director, and then chief financial officer. And that's taken me from 2006 to now in 2020. So I wanted to give you that context because that helps you kind of feel comfortable, hopefully, around what I'm going to be sharing with you. So essentially, I'm taking ideas from the business world and trying to apply those ideas to our personal lives so that we can kind of manage our money a bit better. So businesses tend to have somebody who is a chief financial officer or a finance director with a number one role of essentially championing the business's finances, protecting and almost being that gatekeeper for the families, for the business's finances. So from a personal finance perspective, there needs to be somebody, and we refer to that person as the home CFO, the CFO being the chief financial officer. It has to be somebody at home who takes on that responsibility for protecting the family's finances. And there's never been a better time, really, for that person to arise if you don't have one in your home right now, because you need that person who will be the person fighting to protect the dreams of the family, as well as making sure that you have enough cash to make things happen, as well as making sure that you know what your numbers are from a cost perspective, as well as making sure that you are making an income from various other sources potentially to help to protect your family. Okay, so all of that then feeds into a bunch of activities on a day we call the money days. Diarise in our calendars the first day of every month, because then we can look back over the last 30 days and essentially analyze where all our money has gone. That's usually known as the financial performance of someone's life or a business. And then you want to work out, as we're going to talk about on this call, what your financial position is, which is kind of where you're at right now from the perspective of your net worth, as well as from the perspective of your cash position, for example. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an intro.
Wicked, amazing. Like, the idea of money day excites me because it's like, this is the day where everything gets put in order. You plan for the next few days or months or weeks or however long it is, but then you kind of have a bird's eye view of what's happening in your life then from that point onwards.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I've been so adamant about us having these chats about money and stuff is because I found in my life money to be something, when you got loads of money, everything's great. When you haven't got money, every area of your life is affected. When you haven't got control of your money, it affects your relationships, your friendships, everything in different ways. And it's like, it's not the center of your life, but when your money gets all right, the rest of your life seems to kind of almost fall into place a lot of the time. So that's why I'm so eager to break this down even more. So typically, say in your home, you're married, you have a wife, so there's two of you. I'm by myself. So it's a CFO and the CAO, let's say the Chief Admin Officer. Let's do the first one. So CFO, can you break down the roles and responsibilities of that person? So if I'm CFO of my life and my finances, what do I need to be doing? What's the job spec? What things do I need to do to get that job done properly?
Okay. So before we even go into that, I just want to say one thing tied to what you said earlier. So another reason this role is so important is because in our lives at the minute, a lot of us are almost being reactive and fighting fires. So we're basically not thinking a lot about the future. We're thinking about now and protecting what we've got. Okay. That person who's the home CFO, part of their remit is to make sure that you are not only thinking about the long term, but you're also planning short term. So you've got to get the balance of those two things right. Okay. So a lot of what people do, if they are doing anything at all, is that they are planning for the short term. Okay. But the home CFO has to connect the short term thinking and the actions they've been taking to potentially what the long term game plan is for the family. Okay, so for example, we teach people to become financially independent practically, right? Based on what we've done, it took us 10 years to become financially independent. Had we not had that as a long-term goal, right, all of the short-term activities would not matter. They almost not have a bit of context to which they are connected. Okay? So that's part of what the home CFO is there for. So let's just dive in now and talk about some of the things that you said some of the responsibilities of the home CFO.
The job spec, like what am I supposed to do?
What job spec? Okay. So so your job, so first of all, let's say you've got a couple making this up, right? Between you two, somebody has to decide when you have a conversation, you have to decide who that person is who takes on that role. And usually it has to be the person who is not too emotionally connected to money.
Okay.
Right? So it has to be that person who says, actually, I'm not too swayed emotionally by money. I have certain levels of maturity around money, and I can stand aside and control money. And your job then is as the manager of money, okay? And part of your remit as the home CFO is to then report to I call it your board, essentially. Your board are your wife and your kids and the people you live with. Your job is to every month on that day report what the current financial performance is of your home and what the current financial position of your home is. By performance, I mean, what has happened in the month? Have you made any money at all, right? Have you spent money? If you've spent money, where has all the money gone? Have you lived within your means in the month? Have you stuck to a budgeting process? And if you have, what's the result of that process? We're going to go into detail, by the way, guys. We're just almost at the top level at the minute. We're going to dive in a minute. That's performance. The next is position. That person's job is to then report on what is the current financial position, i.e., what's the family's current financial net worth? What's that number? And what's that number made up of? Do they own property? Do they have cash? Do they have shares? Do they have savings? Have they got bonds? What are their liabilities? What does it look like? All of this comes together on one sheet, usually referred to as your net worth. That person's role is to report on that financial position for the family, right? And then part of their role, as you go through this analysis, and we'll go through it in a minute, is then to then talk about what the expectations are over the next term, i.e. over the next month. What do you expect to happen within the family's finances from a cash flow perspective? Who are we expecting to pay money this month? Mm-hmm. Where are we expecting money to come in from? That sort of stuff, okay? And their role then is to remain as the gatekeeper of the family's finances ultimately. They're the protector of the family's finances. Key material decisions like purchasing anything above, say, £50 or £100 have to go through the home CFO.
Yep.
Okay? Because their role is as the gatekeeper.
Right. So that's the role of the CFO. So their job basically is to be responsible. I think what you said really critically there is to be unemotional about money. So it's not like getting swayed by, oh, but I really want it, or but babe, what about this? Like you can just say, yo, it's a no, and that's it. And that can be, no can be no effectively, or yes can be yes. So on the other side of that, then in the scenario you gave, where there's a couple, husband and wife, or a couple, whoever they are, say the other person is the chief admin officer, right? So break down that role. Then what's different about that role? What do they do differently, and what are they responsible for? Yeah,
so this is a really important role, and that role can be held by the same person, by the way. So the chief admin officer could be the same person who is the home CFO. But the other role essentially is meant for somebody to take on to manage the family's admin. Like, for example, payment of bills, or chasing things up, or making sure that speeding ticket you got is paid on time, or making sure that the kids that they're homeschooling, stuff's been printed out and you're ready for the next day's lesson. All those things are bits of admin. They could be personal admin, or they could be bits of admin tied to potentially your family's business. If you've got a small business, for example, that person's role is essentially to love the admin that needs to be taken care of at home, and get on with the job of actually communicating with everybody and saying, you got that ticket 7 days ago. We are going to be nailed with a ticket and pay, the full fee if you don't take care of that ticket today, for example. So that person's role is to look after the ongoing admin that crops up, and essentially become the cheerleader for admin in a family situation. So together, what you then have is somebody who's the gatekeeper for money, finances, and somebody who's the gatekeeper for admin stuff, right? Together, you're essentially building a really fortified home financially.
Wow. So in my world, then, if I'm doing both, how do I manage the both? So anyone who's single, or, who's doing this by themselves, is there a way to amalgamate the two roles into one? So CFO, Chief Financial Officer, CAO, Chief Admin Officer, as one person. How do you kind of get that?
It comes through planning. So in our home, I actually do both roles.
Okay.
And then I report to my wife. So this morning when we sat down, I had to sit down and explain to her where all our money has come from, and where all our money has gone, and what we've put away, what we've invested, what our current net worth is, what are the key admins we're dealing with, that sort of stuff. And then she manages other aspects of our admin that I can't manage because I'm managing some other things. So, for example, helping out with homeschooling, printing out all the things that need to be printed out. And as we're speaking right now, managing the kids in the other room. Right? So where there's somebody who is in charge of both roles mainly, the key skill is in communication. Right. Making sure that those meetings happen. Right? And also, they need to be quite good at planning things. So I use things such as Google Calendar quite often, where I essentially block out key activities that need to be done. I plan my week in advance. So every kind of Sunday night, I'm sitting there scheduling the entire week. And some of that week is either appointments for things I need to do, or kind of scheduling in key admin activities I need to take care of on specific days.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how somebody who has never actually, who's managing both roles, they'll have to be very good at planning and very good at communicating kind of what's going on in their lives at a minute.
Right. So I guess effectively it is about having systems and processes that almost like set things in motion automatically as well. So
Yep.
like every time I get paid, for example, or a source of income comes in at one point, I must do this with that and I must do that. So let's go into that section of it then. So in terms of implementing the both roles, what processes do you guys have? Like, is it software spreadsheets? I know, in fact, I looked on your website and I found the whole budget planner sheet that you've got, which is sick.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later on anyway, but for now, in terms of like, what do people need to do to get started? What processes do they need to put in place?
So let me just run through it. So if anybody's taking notes, please write this down, yeah? So this is what the day looks like for the home CFO. When the home CFO, these are the things that they need to report or kind of talk about in the meeting when they're having that meeting. Okay, so we did that this morning at 6:30 a.m. And it took us about 2.5 hours between me and my wife to go through everything to do with our financial lives for the last 30 days. Okay, and here's what we went through. And here's the agenda. So I sent my wife an agenda. This is what we're going to talk about. Okay, here are the points. First is, number one, discuss generally about life and what happened in the last month. Okay, so generally about life, what went well and what did not go well. Tied to that number one point, how did we grow in the last month? How did we grow personally? What did we do to grow in the last month? So we sat down and for 5 minutes, we talked about this. Yeah. So for example, my wife read a few more books. For example, I did a lot more praying in the month, a lot more devotional, that sort of content. Yeah. And for me, that was how I was growing. So we discussed it. The reason that's important is just sets the scene for a much more detailed conversation. Okay. Right. Second thing is we then, second point is what were the top 5 financial highlights for the month? What were the top 5 things that happened in the month that you can say were the highlights for your family in the last 30 days? What were those 5 things? Because this just helps you reflect on your month and make notes of your wins, the things that have gone well, because a big part of all this admin stuff is celebrating your wins. You've got to identify your wins and celebrate them. So that's number 2. Yeah. Okay. Now, number 3 is, what was our financial performance in the last month? Yeah. So by that, I mean, we're going to review our budget. How did we do with our budget for the month? That's part of that. Number 3 is, how did we review our budget? How did we do for our budget for the month? Just to explain what I mean here. In the month before, we would have sat down in the last money day and made our expectations for the month ahead, i.e., what do we expect to happen? This is what a budget is. It's essentially a plan for how you're going to distribute your income towards your savings and investments and towards your expenses. So we're now reviewing that performance now, which is, how did we do in the last 30 days? And with that, this is where you talked about the Budget for Life tool, which my wife can share in the links if anybody's interested in that. So you review, how did that budget go? Did you perform? How did you perform against your expectations? Let's say you thought this was going to happen. You thought you were going to spend £50 on this. You thought you were going to spend £300 on that. How did you perform against what you expected to happen for the various expense lines of your life? Okay. For example, you might have been making one source of income in the month, and you expected that next month your side hustle might have worked out, and you might have generated maybe £200 per month from a different source. How did that project go? Did you hit that goal you were trying to achieve? Yeah, that's what that's about in detail. You're going line by line, starting with revenue, and you're saying, what's the income with month expected versus actual? And you're comparing those, and where you haven't met them, you're then discussing, why did we not hit that revenue goal? Yeah. And then you go down to your costs and saying, okay, we expected to spend this on rent, on mortgages, on insurance, on food, on entertainment. How did we do? We thought we were going to spend £30 on takeaways. How did we do really in the month for takeaways? Yeah. So you're then comparing line by line and saying, okay, oh, we spent £60 on takeaway. What happened there? Is our home CFO being ineffective? Because is there a process that did not work out? Did the home CFO not approve too much of expenditure going out of the family's finances in the month? The reason this is important is because you become intimately connected to your numbers if you can look at your numbers line by line. You will know what on earth is going on in your family's finances if you can look at it line by line. Okay, right. So you've reviewed your budget. Next is you review your sources of income, which I talked about. This is still under number 3, by the way. Okay. And then you ask yourself, were there any new expenses in the month? Was there anything you did not expect that showed up? Right? Did you suddenly pay for a random holiday? Or did you suddenly pay for a new TV package or something random? What was it that showed up in the month? Okay. So that's you looking at financial performance. Now let's look at financial position, right? This is number 4. Now we're asking ourselves, what is the family's current net worth? What's the number? Okay. A net worth is a comparison of all your assets to all your liabilities. Assets take away your liabilities, gives you a number, a specific number, which is your current net worth. How does that number compare to the last month? That's your financial, that's your net worth position. And then you want to discuss key movements in that. We'll send a list, by the way, if you guys are interested. I can share a list of this later on. You want to know what moved in the month. Did something go up in value? Like in the current climate, a lot of people's investments would have dipped in value, right? Because the markets have fallen. So you want to talk about that at home with your partner and say, well, actually, the investments we had in these particular shares have maybe fallen in value temporarily, but we have the expectation that things will change in the next few months, for example. This is what the conversation's about, okay? Then finally, for the financial position, you're asking yourselves, how much cash do we have? As with any business, cash is the lifeblood. Same goes with any family. You need access to cash, and you want to know what's the runway for that money? How long would that money last us? Like if this situation now carried on, is it going to last us for 3 months or for 6 months or for a year or for 2 years? Like how much is the cash you've got going to last you? The home CFO has to report on the number. He's going to, or she's going to go and add up all the bits of money you have wherever you've got them and report on a number. That way, everybody, maybe it's a couple, the people who are talking, therefore know what the financial position of the family is. Okay. Now, number 5, and this is the final stage, is where we talk about the expectations for the next 1 month. What do we expect will be happening in the next month? Okay. Do we expect any new income from any other sources? Do we expect any unusual costs in the next month? Yeah. Unusual being things you haven't planned and things like that. And what sort of cash flow expectations do you expect? You know, what sort of money leaving your account and coming in do you expect? Okay. And then finally, we end it by then doing the budgeting process for the month ahead.
Wow. So this is something that you do every single month on the same, so like on the first of the month, you do
first of the month.
And then what do you do in between? Is there any, I know you plan, say, one of the questions was, is anything kind of unexpected happening this month? So do you sit down during the month as well and adjust it? Is it like a living document, or is it something that's like, that's it, and the next month we'll review?
Exactly. So in between are ongoing conversations. You just talk about things.
Yeah.
Right. So we might be making some food in the kitchen, but then we talk about, oh, we suddenly had this unexpected thing. This is definitely gonna blow the budget. So for a really good example is food. So right now, pretty much everybody's spending more money on food than they're possibly expected to be spending, because they're buying things in advance and they're kind of keeping food and so on at home. Yeah. So that would be a classic example. A few people who are budgeting quite effectively will probably find that they are potentially in the last month or so probably blowing their budget as far as food is concerned, because they're probably spending a bit more money. Okay. And so if you are then that home CFO, you are then making sure that conversation is being had, right? And you're talking about those things and setting the expectation for the coming month, which might be that, oh, actually, in this area of food, it might be that we need to allocate a bit more money towards food because we expect the current circumstance potentially to carry on, and so on and so on. But the dialogue is important.
Yeah.
This is what we're missing, because this is the problem is we're always so busy doing everything else except doing the boring work.
Yeah.
Everything I've just told you right now is not sexy. There's nothing sexy about any of this, right? But it's the non-sexy stuff that saves your life, right? It's the stuff that needs to be done to keep the family afloat, to keep your dreams alive, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you hit nail on the head there. We're always attracted to the things that shine, that glisten, Yeah, that's really fun. But this stuff is, I'm not gonna say boring because it's not boring, but it's like it takes work and discipline, and a lot of us don't want to do that. So we avoid these things, I think, until we get to times like these. It's like, oh God, well, I spent £400 this week on Uber Eats, so I probably need to have a budget plan for next month. So yeah, that makes total sense, man. So I mean, the next thing I wanted to ask you really was, in terms of doing all these things, like you have a budget. I think you tagged the link in earlier. We'll share it again later on.
Yeah.
I mean, before I go into this, the caveat for this for you guys is me and Ken in particular, has not asked me to tell you to sell anything. There's nothing attached to this that's about money in terms of you giving us or him.
Yeah.
But I spoke to Ken this morning after finding his budget plan on his site, and I said, well, Ken, we've got to tell people about this because you've created a resource where people can just download, pay for this access to this spreadsheet that's already been created, all the formulas in there, no work in terms of
very simple.
Yeah, it's really simple, and you can buy that from your website, humblepenny.com. And again, Ken has not asked me to do this, guys. This is me because I'm going to buy it myself.
Thank you,
this morning. Yeah. And also, I think it's available through the Financial Joy Academy as well, right?
Yeah, so it's free for anybody who's a member of FJA, Financial Joy Academy. They get it for free. But if you are not a member of FJA, you can just grab a copy for life. You buy it and that's it. It's like we've reduced the price to £29 in this time for anybody who's interested. But if you're interested, this is not really a sales thing. If you're interested, please head over. My wife might drop a link if anybody is interested in looking into that.
Yeah, so we've made a page, a resources page anyway. So on that page, I'll update it to have the link to that spreadsheet on there. Also a link to the Financial Joy Academy, which again, Ken hasn't asked me to do this, so I'm not trying to embarrass you, Ken. But Ken's Financial Academy is something where if you're serious about getting your finances on track and you're trying to find support network and get the discipline and the accountability, I would say, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
To kind of get it done. That's where you do it. And I don't know the prices, but I'll let you talk about yourself, Ken, because you're the expert. In a little bit. But I definitely would say anybody who's serious about managing their finances better and having a support network around them, especially if you're single and you're doing both jobs at the same time.
Yes.
CFO,
we've got a lot of single parents actually as members.
Right. I can imagine.
Which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the thing I wanted to say is that you see a lot of this stuff we're talking about takes time to happen, right? So what I've just outlined to everybody who's listening to me has taken some time to happen. So the thing to just bear in mind is that this might sound like, this is like too much for me to think about. But just the key thing is just think about this is, okay, we want to build a different family, create a different family philosophy. That's what you're trying to create here. You're trying to create a system. And I said this earlier to Adam, which is trying to create a system that might one day even pass on to your children. Okay? Yeah. You're trying to build a process that means that every single month, right, you and your partner, if you've got one, have an idea of what on earth is going on. Because a lot of us, whether you're in debt, whether you haven't got any debt, whatever your position, a lot of us just don't know what on earth is going on. Okay, we just don't know. Some of us bury our heads in the sand and we run away from the numbers. What I've always found is the best thing to do is to face situations head on. Okay, and the way you face things head on is by knowing what on earth is going on. And the way you know what on earth is going on is you go and you do the work. Yeah. I tell this to everybody who approaches me, whether it's my friend or my sister or my brother or my cousins, you've got to do the work. Because if you don't do the work, nothing happens. Whether you're trying to start a business, whether you're trying to manage your finances, whatever it is, some work has to be done. And so this thing I'm talking about, looking at the finances, having a conversation, it's work. Because sitting now this morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. My wife woke up at 5 a.m. I spent time preparing ahead of this meeting to then meet my wife at 6:30. We then sat down before the kids woke up. Kids are upstairs sleeping. We then sat down, made the tea, put the time in, sat down and talked. We logged into this computer here, went to our bank statements, downloaded things, started going painstakingly line by line. That is work, okay? But what that does, if you're somebody who's in a relationship, you've got a partner, what that does is that it actually brings you guys a lot closer. Because money is such a divisive topic. Like couples, in fact, I read somewhere that money is the second, after infidelity, money is the second most popular reason why people break up. Yeah. Right? So if you want your relationship stronger, then use the money to your advantage as a foundation. And the way you do that is to begin to have conversations. Conversations. Because what conversations do is that conversations create transparency.
Yeah.
There's nothing being hidden. You're just talking about it as real as it is, right? And if you're in trouble, if you've got debt, you are talking about it. Because what that does is it then forces you to come up with a game plan for how you're going to come out of that circumstance. But if you don't have that chat, then nobody is raising their hands up and going, oh, look, I'm looking after the finances. And then it carries on and rolls over from one month to another and then piles up. And before you know it, you know, fear, anxiety, stress, all the things that nobody needs in their life starts to pile up as well.
Yeah.
So I always find that the thing that's always stopping people from going to that next best place in their lives is a missing conversation. They just don't want to sit down and have the chat. So turn all your devices off. Turn off all those shiny things you've got, beeping, those notifications on your phone. Turn them off. Go into your kitchen, make yourself a cup of tea, head back into your wherever is comfortable for you, and just sit down and have a chat. That's what's missing.
Yeah.
If you start talking, things start to happen.
Yeah.
So we've gone to the stage where we diarize the conversation. No matter, and we're busy. Like Adam, like you're busy, I'm busy. There's stuff going on, like you wouldn't believe, right? But I know that if I don't make the time to have this chat, we are going that way. But if I have the chat, we are that way together.
Yeah.
We're a force. Do you understand?
Yeah.
We're on the same page all the time. My wife can recite our numbers like that. Yeah. Because she understands I've been doing my job as the home CFO in not only planning the family's finances and the family vision, I'm also communicating it with her all the time.
Wow. So I think in that point you made, a lot of people are kind of taking that one quite close to their hearts to saying, you know, I think the preacher is talking about me, so you're preaching now, Ken, by the way. That's what But something that was pivotal about what you said then was the idea, firstly, of communication anyway, because if you're doing this meeting monthly, the level of communication you have will increase as a natural result of that, right?
Yeah.
And I think also it's something that we're not really taught, especially I don't really think many of us have seen our parents or our families sit down, get a spreadsheet out or book out together and say, right, so this is how much I made this month, this is how much you've made. When we put it together, this goes there. We just assume, as kids anyway, growing up, somebody pays the bills somehow, unless you get a knock on the door. So we don't really ever get to find out the processes. So when we're going into our relationship ourselves, it's kind of like, well, I've never heard anybody talk about this stuff, so I want to talk about it. You know, that kind of thing. I think I did that in previous relationships as well. So yeah.
Yeah. You see, we talk a lot about generational wealth. Yeah. And when people hear those words, generational wealth, they think of money, right? But what most people don't think about is what's really even more important than money are the processes, the systems, the culture of a family that they've kind of built up over time and then passing on to their children or their family members as time passes. I give a really, really good example.
Yeah.
Right? My family, we're an entrepreneurial family, right? My sisters, my brother, my parents, every single person runs a business, right? And so when we want to talk about one of the businesses we all do together, which is a childcare business that we run, we own a chain of nurseries. When we want to have those conversations, we have a special WhatsApp group for that business. And we show up, you know, pre the times we're in, we would show up at my parents' house. My mum will have an agenda. We will all sit down and everybody has their contributions. Everybody has a role. My sister's looking after marketing. The other sister's looking after operations. I'm looking after finance. Mum's looking after new business. So are you seeing that what I'm talking to you about didn't just start because I went and learned it somewhere. A lot of what I'm talking to you about are things that I'm seeing my parents, my dad, my mum also communicate and practice in their own lives practically.
Right.
So what that means then is that what you're seeing there is generational wealth in action. Yeah. Right? Just as I'm talking about, my parents are talking about it, I am applying the same thoughts, my wife's applying the same thoughts, and our kids, they are watching all the time. Kids, Like they are always watching and they are always listening. And so what happens over time is that they also start to speak in the same language and start to apply the same thought processes that you potentially apply in your own life as well.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, the generational wealth thing, we've talked about it before, but I think a lot of people confuse it for just being passing down money. But what you said there is basically we're passing down knowledge, processes, systems that even if you have zero money to start off with, as soon as you get a pound, the process kicks in and the saving starts, the investment starts, you know, that kind of thing. So I think it's wicked. I just want to stop for a second and just let everyone know, if they want to ask any questions, we're going to try and fit some in at the end. I've got a couple pop up already. So if you have any questions, try and put them in from now if you've got any.
Yeah.
We've got like 20 minutes left, I think.
Yeah. Let's take some questions if you've got some as well.
Yeah, we'll do that. And I just want to also just recap for everyone who just joined, because there's a few questions about the CFO and CAO. So CFO is the Chief Financial Officer. And their role and responsibility is to manage and be the gatekeeper of the money in the home. Yep. We're going to share the resources about the roles later on, but this is just to give you a quick heads up. When we say CFO, that's what Ken means. And also CAO, the Chief Admin Officer, which is basically the person who makes sure that the money gets to where it's supposed to get to and looks after the ongoing admin on a day-to-day basis, the bills and all that kind of stuff. Yep. So that's just for references for everyone who's watching. So I just want you, Ken, before we go to the questions, I just want you to share a little bit more about the Humble Penny then, and also talk about Financial Joy Academy, and drop again in about the budget spreadsheet, because I know if I have to make a spreadsheet, it will never happen because rubbish formulas, rubbish. I can code websites, but I can't build a formula for a spreadsheet. So that's what that's about. But yeah, just share more about that first.
Okay. Yeah. So we run. So for the guys who might know, so we run. I say 3 platforms. So thehumblepenny.com is our blog. So it's a website where you can go and basically look at all the information we've got for free. Okay, we'll talk about investing, making money, savings, managing debt, relationships, even anything that means that the family unit is being strengthened. We talk about that on the Humble Penny. We publish a content once or twice a week on that website. Parallel to the blog, and the blog is the first thing we started. We typically have between 35 and 40,000 monthly unique visitors to that site. So it's been growing quite a lot in its reach around the world, which is quite an interesting thing for us. Parallel to the blog, we have the YouTube channel by the same name as well, The Humble Penny. So a lot of you guys watching, I'd really appreciate you heading over to YouTube and please subscribe, because our channel is new. We only started it last summer, but we are so passionate about what we do. Like I'll be up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning planning a video for free, right? Because I'm so passionate about this subject getting out there to the people out there, and the families becoming strengthened and becoming better in their financial lives. So the Humble Penny on YouTube, again, you can access through your devices. Then on the 29th of February this year, we launched a new platform called financialjoyacademy.com. So this is where we essentially offer a membership program to help families achieve financial independence in the next 10 years. It's our core mission. It's the #1 goal that we have in our lives right now, which is to seek out families, reach out to as many families as possible, share everything we have. We create basically courses, masterclasses. We show up and do coaching calls every 2 weeks. We do Facebook Lives in the community. We do accountability sessions. We do accountability partnerships. You know, everything that means that you are not just talking about getting to where you want to get to, but you are actually taking action and being held accountable for doing that. Okay, so that platform is unique from that perspective, because the people we want on that platform are people who've kind of said to themselves, you know what, I've been talking for the last decade. This next decade, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to start acting and doing things and seeking out people of like-mindedness who I want to go on this journey with and learn from. So the community has, apart from me and Mary, we've got, I think, about 100 and something people in there now since we launched in February. Wow. And all those people in there come with so many skill sets. Whether it's online business, whether it's Amazon FBA, whether it's eBay business you want to start, whether you want to trademark your business, whether you're looking for IT skills, all those people are in there because they are of the same mindset. Okay, so when you combine all those things together, we wanted it to be super accessible to families. So we made it a monthly thing where you pay a small fee each month and have access. We show up all the time. We do case studies, all kinds of things. Anything that means that you are seeing progress every single month. That's what Financial Joy Academy is about. So head over, please check it out if you can at financialjoyacademy.com.
Amazing. Got a couple of questions in, Ken. We'll jump to them quickly. But I want to talk about the spreadsheet a bit as well.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I tried to make a spreadsheet a couple of months ago. I said to myself, this year, like I'm going to plan all my incomings, all my outgoings and stuff, and have like an idea of how much money I've got left over each month. Because sometimes you get down to the point where you're like, whoa, this could be tight. And other times, I'm a millionaire. Right? It just depends. Yeah. So I wanted to get some kind of idea of my average monthly income from all my different streams of income, and then also be able to project, for the rest of the year, if I wanted to save this amount of money for this thing, how long would it take me? So I tried to make a spreadsheet and flopped it, man. Totally flopped it. I tried to find some formulas online. It just didn't work for me. So we'll talk about that in a second. But there's a couple of questions, so let's get those up.
Yeah.
So somebody says, I think this is just quick answers. Is it a good time or climate to change jobs now? I'm not sure context, but I guess, what do you think of that?
So I've taken on a life approach, which is to live a life of boldness. All the time, I'm always trying to practice boldness in my life. I say to anybody right now, if you're in a job that, yes, first of all, if you're in a job, well done for being in a job, because a lot of people are not in jobs at the minute.
Yeah.
But if you're in a job and you found a better opportunity that serves you better in your life and connects better with what you're really trying to achieve in your life, I personally would move on and move on to that job if you found that opportunity. So that's probably the most I can say without enough information about that question.
Of course, the person who's responded as well saying thank you, so I think you hit the nail. Another question is, what do you find is the biggest downfall in families to keep to a budget?
Consistency.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
Consistency. That's number one. It's the number one reason why people do not do budgeting effectively. They're not, and they do not give the budget the respect, right? Because the budget, think of it as when you go, I don't know if you've ever been sailing, but if you've got a compass is there to act as a guide to get you to a destination. The budget is the compass. If you use the tool how it's meant to be used and give the tool the respect to help guide your financial life, then it will take you to where you want to get to. But most people don't give it the respect, and most people are not consistent enough, and so they do not see the results that they want to see from a budgeting process.
Right, that's true. I think consistency is the key for most disciplines. Require consistency, don't they? And that's the thing that we kind of lack, and that's probably why it's always the few that succeed in certain areas, because it's only a few people have the dedication to be consistent every day, whether it rains, whether you've got loads of money or no money, principles that are just foundational to what you do. So that's a big one, that is, Ken. Let's get the next question up. The next question is, okay, this is a good one. What role does your wife play as a board member? Like, what does she do because she's your board and effectively you're reporting to her? What does she play in that relationship, in that setting, in the environment of the board meeting?
So I almost think of my wife as she's kind of the chairman of things going on. Yeah. So she does a lot of things behind the scenes, a lot of things. But the role is always, and everything we own is equal. Everything's ours together as a couple. And so although I'm doing heavy lifting in our financial life, in order to keep, essentially the chairman in that setting informed of what's going on, I focus a great deal on making sure I communicate and get her fully involved on what's going on and in the decision making. So I can't make decisions without running those decisions by her. So her role is in also keeping me accountable, because I need to be kept accountable in our relationship as well.
Right. So that is a relationship of accountability outside of husband and wife, where husband and wife, this is like in the official format of our business, which is our finances. I'm holding myself accountable to you. And you can ask me those questions that challenge me to make sure I'm doing the right thing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Because otherwise I could just be doing whatever I want. Right? Which is why a CFO in a business world is always reporting to a CEO who is keeping them accountable.
And I think I love what you said then as well. You said that, you know, as much as you're doing the heavy lifting in terms of the finances and stuff, that it's a partnership and it's both of you and
Oh
everything's
yeah,
together. I think it's
we
important to have that. Yeah.
yeah, we've got no concept, and this is actually critical, and I hope people understand this very point. We've got no concept in our home of his and her money.
Yes. Okay.
Doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw this with my parents. My parents struggled with this very point. In that, you know, my mother was making her own money, my dad was making his own money, and then they in effect start living parallel lives.
Yeah.
Okay. What you don't want is living parallel lives in a really effective relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You really want one unit
mm-hmm.
because you're stronger that way. And it creates very strange pressures where you have parallel lives in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So we found that there's no, for us, for this to work, everything that comes in, whether it's come through my efforts or my wife's efforts, everything that comes in is the family's wealth. Because that's what we're building here. We're building a family. We're building the family's wealth.
I think this is something that, especially particularly from the Caribbean, African cultures, it's something I know our grandparents in particular my grandma would have her own little stash of money that nobody knew about.
Yeah.
Pull out, she needed to pull out, you know, and granddads and dads would be like sort of, you know, just paying what they need to pay, whatever. But I think you're right. I think it's really important that everything is in one place and that you have full oversight of everything. And that is a common agreement that this is our money. And if I put in £10, you put in £50, the £60 is ours, not the £10.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Because I tell you why this matters. There's 2 points. The first one is, if you hide one thing from your partner, you hide another thing from your partner.
Very true.
Yeah. So if you hide money from your partner, you will hide other information from your partner. That's facts.
Yeah, you have to.
Guaranteed.
Yeah,
right? That's number one.
Mm.
The second point as well is that when you start to, is this idea of creating the pressures these starts to create. Because say, for example, you might have one person, imagine like if you live parallel lives and like the woman in the relationship maybe took time out to go on maternity leave
Right.
and then maybe had a career change because she didn't want to go back to work, for example.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, you then have a change in dynamics in a relationship where the man, for example, would be the person who's earning all the money. And therefore, almost this places a different level of pressure on maybe the woman potentially, or, you know, whichever way it works out for people. But what I find is that if you have those different parallel lives, as time passes, one person might be ill, one person might have a career change, and income levels will get affected. And as that happens, it starts to affect relationships if the focus is on this is my money and this is your money. That causes big problems as time passes.
Yeah. Wow. That's phenomenal stuff, Ken. That is. A lot of people don't know this stuff because they've never seen it done. So this is new stuff for a lot of people.
I'm learning it because I'm seeing it in reality.
Yeah.
Like I've seen this with my parents. This is not like some theory. This is reality. Like I've seen this happen and I've learned from that experience. And I'm like, wow, you know, if I had to read, because we always approach our lives from a place of design. If I had to design my life in the way I want it, how would I want it to look, given what I know about life so far? And this is one thing I want people from a mindset perspective to always bear in mind. If you had a blank sheet of paper and you had to design your ideal life, what does that life look like? What are the elements of your ideal life? What would you take away from your current life? And what would you bring back into your current life? That in itself is an exercise I think anyone should really start to have a chat about in their homes and, you know, potentially start to put in place if they're not already doing that.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Got a couple more questions for you, Ken. The next one, this is, I'll put it on the screen. I think, I don't really. Have you heard of Crowd One, and is it legit? I'm not sure what that is, Ken, unfortunately, but
Crowd One.
Yeah, is that something you know about?
No, I haven't heard of them. No.
Okay, let's skip that one for now. Unless you can provide some more context to whoever asked that question, we'll skip that one. The next one is this. So, what are your views on Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps? Do you subscribe to his methods, or would? Oh,
okay, so first of all, we like Dave Ramsey. Okay? I think his teachings around debt are spot on, absolutely spot on. I think the 7 steps we have a different approach. We teach a different method. And we teach ideas around entrepreneurship and doing different things to kind of get yourself, accelerate that journey towards your own financial independence. So his own method works, and it does work, but it doesn't mean that it's the method. You know, other methods, a different method has worked for us. But the overarching point is that these methods ultimately are leading you to the same place, but they have different elements that make them unique and potentially work for some people, but not some people as well.
Okay, and the follow-up to that was, would you change or add to any of those steps? Is that something you can answer? Would you change?
I'd probably say I'd hold more cash.
Okay.
So with one of the steps, let's focus on kind of first £1,000 and so on and so on and so on. In a time like this, I'd probably hold more cash.
Yeah.
I'd probably look to hold a slightly larger emergency fund, for example. And I'd also explore entrepreneurial ideas that are quite small but have the potential for a lot of returns. Say, for example, blogging. If you do blogging effectively, and I teach blogging all the time. In fact, thehumblepenny.com, had I not started that blog in 2017 in December, I wouldn't be having this chat with you right now. So ideas like that, if done well, can really